ESPN is going to take over the NFL Network. Their Red Zone channel is part of that. And the NFL is going to get reportedly about a 10% stake in ESPN.
What if I told you that Stephen A. Smith might be hosting NFL Red Zone in a year from now? Now, before you click away thinking that I've lost my mind, stick with me because what I'm about to tell you is so much bigger and way more insane than you think. We're talking about a deal that could completely destroy NFL Sundays as we know them. And it all started with one tweet that sent the entire football world into absolute chaos. But first, let me ask you this, and I want you to think about this seriously. When was the last time you trusted ESPN to not completely ruin something you love? I'll wait. What I'm about to show you is exactly why millions of NFL fans are genuinely terrified right now. Let me take you back to December of 2024. NFL fans are watching their beloved Red Zone and something feels off. Scott Hanson is doing his usual masterful job bouncing between games, but then it happens. Split screen advertisements start appearing during the broadcast. For 15 years, literally 15 years, Scott Hanson's #1 catchphrase has always been,
7 hours of commercial-free football start now.
It was the promise that made Red Zone special. It was the reason millions of fans chose Red Zone over everything else. It was sacred. And just like that, it was gone. Scott Hanson, being the class act that he is, actually apologized to fans. He had to drop his signature tagline because it was no longer true. Imagine having to do that, having to tell millions of fans that the thing you promised them for 15 years is no longer something you can deliver. The fan reaction was immediate and brutal. One fan said that they've ruined the one perfect thing about NFL Sundays. Another said that if they're willing to break this promise, then what's next? Well, as it turns out, what was next was way worse than anyone could have imagined, because this wasn't just about a few split screen ads, this was the beginning of the end.
How did they think that was okay to even put it in the game? I'm so sick of this company.
This was the NFL testing the waters to see how much they could get away with before they dropped the nuclear bomb that was coming. And man, that bomb was about to drop hard. So picture this. It's August 1st, 2025. You're scrolling through X having a normal day, excited as hell that NFL season is just less than a month away. And then Andrew Marchand from The Athletic drops this absolute bombshell. ESPN and the NFL have agreed to a blockbuster billion-dollar deal that will result in top media properties like Red Zone moving to ESPN. But here's what nobody saw coming, and this is where it gets really crazy. This wasn't just some random business deal. This was the culmination of 4 years of negotiations that one source described as on again, off again, on again, and off again. And get this, ESPN isn't even paying cash for this. They're giving the NFL up to 10% equity in ESPN itself, potentially worth between $2.2 and $2.5 billion. In exchange, they get NFL Network, NFL Red Zone, and 7 additional regular season games, and the NFL's entire fantasy football business. But wait, it gets worse. Way worse. And I'm going to tell you exactly why this could be the beginning of the end for everything we love about NFL Sundays. But first, I need to tell you about the legendary Scott Hanson's response, because it's either the most reassuring thing you'll hear in this video or the most terrifying. When this news broke, every single NFL fan had the same thought. What about Scott Hanson, the man who's been the voice of Red Zone since day one in 2009? The Syracuse grad who famously goes 7 hours without bathroom breaks. The guy who is Red Zone. His response to the ESPN takeover was just one word: onward. Now that either means, hey, everything's gonna be okay, we're gonna move forward together, or it means, well, this is happening whether we like it or not, so onward we go into the unknown. And honestly, I'm not sure which interpretation scares me more. But here's what most people don't know, and this is where it gets really interesting. Just months before this deal was announced, Scott Hanson was in what he called quite a knockdown, drag-out negotiation with the NFL. In May of 2025, he signed a 4-year contract to continue hosting Red Zone through 2029. The timing? Not a coincidence. The NFL knew this ESPN deal was coming, and they made damn sure that their most valuable on-air asset was locked down before handing the keys to Mickey Mouse. But here's the question that's keeping me up at night. Does ESPN care about that contract? And speaking of ESPN, we have some pretty interesting nightmare scenarios for you guys. All right, let's address the elephant in the room. Within minutes of this acquisition news breaking, social media erupted with one absolutely terrifying thought. What if ESPN replaces Scott Hanson with Stephen A. Smith? And before you laugh, I want you to pay attention to the fact that Joe Beldner laid out what he called ESPN's 3-year plan to destroy Red Zone. Year 1 would be no more commercial-free football. Year 2 would be replacing the witching hour with something promoting ESPN Plus. Year 3 would be replacing Scott Hanson with Kendrick Perkins. Could you imagine Kendrick Perkins sitting there saying, however, LeBron James would have caught that pass, or the Dallas Cowboys are fraudulent and Tom Brady would never, while 7 games are happening simultaneously? Now, industry insiders are saying these fears are completely unfounded. Jimmy Traina from Sports Illustrated literally called the speculation too stupid to acknowledge, stating definitively that we're not going to see Stephen A. Smith host Red Zone. The consensus among experts is that ESPN knows that they're acquiring the best TV products since Seinfeld, and they're not about to mess with perfection. But here's my thing. Haven't we seen Disney acquire legendary IPs before and destroy them? I mean, come on, I know we're a sports YouTube channel, but are you really telling me that they know what they're doing with the Star Wars IP? And even furthermore, when's the last time that they had a show that they didn't just throw Stephen A. Smith into? ESPN and Disney have never ever had an IP that they didn't need to tinker with and ruin in some way or some shape or form. And this is when NFL fans would lose their minds. I mean, one fan said that ESPN will turn Red Zone into the Pat McAfee show watches Red Zone. Another speculated that Pat McAfee will host Red Zone. So why did this deal really happen? It's not about Red Zone and it's not about NFL Network. It's about survival in the streaming wars. And both sides are playing 4D chess here. For ESPN, this is literally about not going extinct. They're launching their direct-to-consumer streaming service this fall at $29.99 per month, targeting the 60+ million households that don't have traditional cable. But here's the thing, why would cord cutters pay $30 a month for ESPN when they can get Netflix for $15? Red Zone, that's why. Red Zone isn't just content for ESPN, it's leverage. When ESPN sits down with cable companies for carriage negotiations, they can now say, you want Red Zone? Then you're paying our price for the whole ESPN package. It's brilliant and it's ruthless. The NFL, meanwhile, gets to exit the TV production business after 22 years of trying and failing to make the NFL Network a true ESPN competitor. Distribution dropped from 71 million homes in 2015 to just 51 million by 2024. The network faced repeated budget cuts and layoffs, so now instead of competing with ESPN, they own a piece of ESPN. If you can't beat them, join them, and if you can't join them, buy a piece of them. But here's what's really wild, this deal has been in the works since 2021. 4 years of negotiations, and it almost fell apart multiple times. The behind the scenes drama to this story is juicy. Sources say that negotiations started back in 2021 with talks heating up, cooling down, then heating up again in this exhausting cycle. The final breakthrough reportedly came from a face-to-face meeting between NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell and Disney CEO Bob Iger in the summer of 2024. But even then, it wasn't smooth sailing. The complex structure, equity for assets rather than a straight cash deal, created legal headaches that took months to work through. And get this, regulatory approval is expected to take 9 to 12 months, meaning we probably won't see major changes until the 2026-27 season, which is perfectly timed for ESPN's first Super Bowl broadcast in February of 2027. But here's what nobody's talking about, and this is where it gets really interesting: the rise and fall of the NFL Network and why this deal was basically inevitable. Let me take you back to 2003. The NFL launches its own network with a $100 million investment and dreams of challenging ESPN's dominance, and for a while it looked promising. They introduced Thursday Night Football in 2006, built programming around NFL Films' legendary archive, and created must-see TV for football junkies. But here's the thing about taking on the worldwide leader, it's really hard. Despite having the most popular sport in America as its content, NFL Network never achieved the cultural impact or financial success that the league hoped for. It became, as one analyst put it, a nice to have but not a must have for most fans. Then in 2009, they struck gold with Red Zone. The concept was simple but revolutionary. Jump between every NFL game on Sunday, focusing on teams in scoring position, no commercials, no bathroom breaks for Scott Hanson, just pure concentrated football for 7 straight hours. It was perfect for the fantasy football boom and the emerging culture of fans who cared more about their fantasy teams than their home teams. Red Zone didn't just succeed, it changed how millions of fans watch football. But even with Red Zone's success, NFL Network still struggled, often pulling just hundreds of thousands of viewers. It was increasingly expensive to operate relative to its impact. In 2024, 72 of the top 100 TV shows were NFL games, but very few were on NFL Network. And that brings me to a historical comparison that should terrify every NFL fan. To understand why fans are so worried, you need to know what happened the last time there was a seismic shift in NFL broadcasting. In 1994, Fox shocked the sports world by outbidding CBS for NFC rights with a stunning $1.58 billion offer. CBS, which had broadcast the NFL for 38 years, was devastated. They fell from second to fourth place in ratings, lost key affiliates in major markets, and struggled for 4 years until they could get back into the NFL game. The message was clear. In the TV business, losing the NFL can be catastrophic. But Fox, they used the NFL to transform from an upstart network into a major player literally overnight. They gained credibility, massive viewership, and used football as a platform to promote all their other shows. Sound familiar? That's exactly what ESPN is doing here. They're using NFL content to prop up their streaming service and leverage their way back to dominance in a cord-cutting world. But here's what really matters. What does this mean for your Sundays? Alright, let me cut through all the panic and give you the real talk on what's actually going to happen based on expert analysis and historical precedent. Red Zone will probably stay mostly the same. I mean, ESPN isn't stupid, they don't have Kathleen Kennedy running this network, and they know that they're buying the best TV products in Seinfeld. Expect to see ESPN logos and maybe the bottom line ticker, but the core format, including Scott Hansen's marathon hosting, will remain intact. No Stephen A. Smith takeover, no debate segments, no Cowboys Red Zone, as some fans feared. The NFL Network would probably get a makeover. This is where ESPN will make their mark. Expect higher production values, better programming, and integration with ESPN's massive sports ecosystem. Think of how they transformed the SEC network. Separate identity, but with ESPN's resources behind it. And Red Zone will most likely become a premium feature of ESPN's $29.99 streaming service, though it'll still be available through traditional cable packages for cord cutters. This might actually make Red Zone more accessible. So when can we expect all this to happen? Well, here's what's most likely to happen. The 2025-26 season is probably going to be the same. ESPN won't rock the boat while regulatory approval is pending. Scott Hansen does his thing, Red Zone football stays commercial free-ish, and NFL Network continues as normal. But the very next year is when integration will begin. ESPN branding appears, some NFL Network shows might get canceled or reformed, but Red Zone remains largely untouched. This season culminates with ESPN's first Super Bowl in 21 years. They don't want any controversial changes overshadowing that milestone. But in 2027 and beyond, this is when we might see bigger changes. If ESPN's streaming service is struggling, don't be surprised if they experiment with Red Zone's format. But if the fans revolt loudly enough, ESPN will likely back off. But let's talk about what ESPN is gaining for a second. Red Zone has 5 to 5.4 million subscribers during the NFL season, with around 900,000 weekly viewers. Those might not sound like ESPN level numbers, but here's the thing. These are the most dedicated and engaged football fans in America. They're the ones who buy NFL Sunday Ticket, play fantasy football, and bet on games. In advertiser speak, they're high-value consumers. NFL Network, meanwhile, has struggled, often pulling just hundreds of thousands of viewers. It's been increasingly expensive to operate relative to its impact. The deal is valued at $2.5 billion, but here's what's crazy. That's just the equity stake. The total value when you factor in the content, the streaming rights, and the leverage it gives ESPN in negotiations is significantly more than that. And here's something that should make you think. Disney CEO Bob Iger is betting his company's future on this deal working. ESPN's streaming service needs to succeed, or Disney is in serious trouble. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think about this brand new acquisition? Are you concerned that it's going to destroy Red Zone, or do you think Red Zone's going to be largely untouched? I'd like to hear what you have to say. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.